I'm going to be teaching you how to enter what I call the matrix glitch frequency so that you can have miracles unfold in your life. So I'm going to be walking you through how reality is structured like a matrix, how the current matrix reality that we're living in is draining your energy and your potential, and how you can use the very rules that are being used against you to your advantage so that you can become this glitch and start writing reality on your own terms. This is going to be a little bit of a controversial one. It's going to be a bit different to my normal content, but as always, it's going to be very practical. At the end, I'm going to give you practical, actionable steps that you can walk away with and implement today in your life. Because there's no use listening to all this content and not actually implementing it. I want you to implement it. I want you to actually be able to empower yourself and do the things you want to do in this life. To become a glitch in the matrix, you first need to understand the matrix. So this reality is designed like a matrix. What do I mean by that? It's basically a system of consciousness that's governed by particular rules. The people in power in this reality that we're currently living in, this 3D reality that we're living in here and now, you watching this video, the people that are in power, they understand the rules by which the matrix operates. And they use these rules in order to remain in power. 99% of people, the people who are not in power, the people who are struggling in reality, the people who are not earning a lot of money, the people who are depressed, anxious, isolated, separated, all of these things, they do not understand the rules by which this matrix operates. Therefore, they are being controlled by these rules. So let's break down what is the matrix and how does it work? You might be expecting me to talk about the movie The Matrix. I've never seen that movie. I've heard about it. I've never actually seen it. What I'm actually going to be talking about is how reality works, okay? When I speak about the matrix, I'm speaking about the way that this reality, this universe actually works. So reality is a matrix, and it is essentially a system of consciousness. And I want you to start conceptualizing it as kind of a map that looks like an egg. It's supposed to be a circle. Essentially, it's just this vast area of different forms of consciousness. That's what the matrix is. It's different dimensions, different rates of vibration create different spaces and forms. You, where you are in the matrix reality, that is your experience. So let's say you are having an experience of earning $2,000 per month, working a job in an office that you don't love, living in the suburbs. You are in a particular sector of the matrix. This is your sector, okay? The sector that you're occupying within this matrix reality is dictated by the frequency of that sector. So every sector has a different frequency, okay? It's just different areas. You are in this location in the matrix because of your energetic frequency. So wherever you are within the matrix is determined by the resonant frequency that you are emitting. That enables you to anchor into one particular location. You have the energetic coordinates internally to land externally in the physical matrix at that location. That's as simple as I can put it. That is how this matrix reality works. Now, let's just say you want to be this glitch. What does it mean to be the glitch? Now, within the matrix of this 3D reality, there are also systems, i.e. matrices, within the overall matrix. So what do I mean by that? I mean like the economy. I mean the governments. I mean the schools. All these systems that have been set up as structures in this 3D reality are also matrices. And so your experience here of you earning $2,000 per month, and I'm just using that to quantify a certain experience. But let's just say you're working your office job and you're living in the suburbs, right? That's your experience. I don't know where I'm getting this from, but there you go. You're in this sector of the matrix. This is your experience. This is your sector. And you're wanting something that's totally out there that nobody around you is experiencing. You want to be earning, let's say, $200,000 per month. You want to be working, let's say, online. Maybe you want to be a freelancer. Maybe you want to, I don't know, start a cooking channel on YouTube. Maybe you don't want to do any of that. Maybe you just want to trade crypto or something. You want to have an experience that's very different. You want to become a glitch. Typically, you're going to have to leave the matrix within the matrix. Now stay with me. Most people will never exit the matrix that they are within, that they were incarnated into in this 3D reality. So most people run around on autopilot in the same frequency, in the same energy for their whole life. And so they stay trapped within the same experience. Maybe they move from a 2K per month office job and they're able to move up to a 4K per month office job, but it's pretty much the same. They pretty much feel the same, and they never break beyond a certain threshold. Why? Because they don't actually ever become a glitch. They remain within the same range energetically, and so they remain within the same matrix energetically in this reality. They remain limited, scared, small, not tapping into their full potential. So what an actual glitch looks like is shifting your internal state so much that you shift sector outside of the norm and what logically makes sense. And the key component here is a frequency shift. The reason this is so difficult is because we are kept in a very particular frequency, in a very particular state of consciousness by the systems that are set up in whatever matrix in this reality we find ourselves within. And so becoming a glitch means completely overriding all of this programming that's keeping you in a certain state so that you can shift it and you can expand yourself outside of it. If you want to be living in a reality that most people don't live in, if you want to be living an exceptional life, you have to transcend the consciousness of the masses. You have to transcend the consciousness that the majority have been programmed with by the matrix that we are encapsulated within. So even if we zoom it out for a second and we think about how this matrix that we're currently living in drains our power. First of all, realize that you have a lot of power. You've been programmed to forget your power, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the power. You've just been programmed to forget it. So each and every one of us has creative life force energy flowing through our body. We have creative consciousness within us. It is the essence of our being. We have all of this creative potential. We have enough energy in our bodies to fuel an entire modern city for a week, each and every one of us. So we all have this potential. Life force is this creative potential flowing in our body, in our energy fields. And the way that the systems in this reality are set up, i.e. the matrix, is to basically siphon our creative energy from us into their systems so we can fuel the systems rather than fueling our own potential and our own creations. So let me give you some examples of this. Social media is one of the most relevant examples that I can think of. Our attention is currently the most valuable asset on the planet. Social media companies are making billions and billions and billions of dollars through us spending our creative conscious awareness on these platforms with our attention. So if it weren't for us, the conscious observer, observing the content on the platform would have no value. It would generate no value in terms of profit. Our consciousness is the most valuable resource on this planet. This is why think about how little it would benefit a capitalist society, corporations, etc., for us to know our power, for us to need nothing outside us, for us to be confident and secure and not bogged down by fear and shame and needing validation. How would that serve the systems that are set up currently in society? It wouldn't. If you think about when news was created, when TV first started, TV programs, it's very specifically designed to condition our subconscious minds in a particular way that we forget our power, we forget our creative capacity, we forget that we are one with God, with Source, and we have the capacity to reach higher states of consciousness and create serious impact in this reality. So if you think of yourself from the moment that you arrived here in this incarnation as just this pure conscious being with creative potential and life force running through your body, from the moment that you opened your eyes and you started receiving inputs from external reality, that was the moment that you began to be programmed with fear, with conditioning, with ideas about who you are and what you should want. And those are the things that are draining you of your potential. Those are the things that are keeping you trapped in a slave state of consciousness. When I say a slave state of consciousness, what do I mean? A slave is a person who is not autonomous, okay? They're not, whether consciously or unconsciously, willingly making their own autonomous decisions about themselves and who they are and what they do in their life. And so if you've been programmed with fear and scarcity and limiting beliefs so that you can feed your focus and your energy into these systems and these agendas and all of these things outside you since the moment you were born, then you are in a slave state of consciousness, because you are unconsciously, unbeknownst to you, you are not autonomous. You are not actually making decisions that serve you best in this life. I'll tell you guys right now, I know a lot of really high level people who have experienced an insane amount of success, and they are not listening to mainstream news. They're not listening to mainstream music. They're not watching TV. Very rarely. They might watch something that they really enjoy, that's entertaining, but they have a lot of discernment around what inputs they take in, because they know this stuff and they know the power of their energy. It goes as far as the foods you eat, everything, the medications that you take, every little thing. Ask yourself, who would you be if none of this stuff had ever crossed your path? If you want to be a glitch, you have to stop playing by the rules that other people have made for you. If you want to know how powerful you are, you have to be a glitch. All right, now let's get into how to be the glitch. So the very mechanism that was used to keep you trapped within the matrix, keep you unconscious, on autopilot, giving your power away, is the very mechanism that you're going to use to exit the matrix, or outsmart the matrix, or rise above the matrix and create life on your terms. And that mechanism is frequency control. If you go back thousands of years to the Hermetics, the secret societies, the elites, all the ancient texts and spirituality, and you actually look at things like the principle of mentalism, cause and effect, correspondence, polarity, rhythm, all of these principles, you can see how the systems are using these principles in order to gain power, and how the masses are unaware of these principles, and so they remain powerless. And it all boils down to your ability to master yourself. When we talk about frequency control, at the core of it, somebody who is a sheep, somebody who is unconscious, somebody who is playing small and not living up to their potential and their full power, they are in reactive mode. They're observing the world outside them, and they're allowing that world to program them. They're allowing that world to dictate who they are. But a person who is a creator in their reality, who is defining the terms of their life, they are in creative mode. They are in responsive mode. They are in the mode of, they are dictating to reality what is true to them, rather than letting reality dictate to them what is true. They are autonomous. They are self-assured, self-defined, self-led. So that is the immediate switch you have to make. The old way is reactive, and the new way is creative. This is how you go from slave to master in your consciousness. Okay, now let's break down the components. This is where it's going to get practical. How can you use the very laws that are being used against you in your favor, so that you can start bending reality to your will rather than you submitting to the systems and the matrix? Frequency control is comprised of different elements. Your frequency is made up of your attention, what you're focusing on, what you're feeding your energy into, your thoughts and beliefs, your emotions, and your identity. All of these things create your overall state, or your resonant frequency, which determines your experience of reality. It's not about the outside world. The outside world is just a mirror of your state. And so you are stuck within a sector of the matrix because you're stuck within a particular state internally, not because of anything outside you. That's another lie you were told. So the first component that you must master is your attention. The English language is very literal sometimes. We say paying attention, and that could not be more accurate. Everything that you put your senses on, that you put your focus on, you are allowing that information to gain access to you. You are allowing that information to be fed into your subconscious mind. We are very, very programmable beings, especially when we're children, which is why it's so dangerous. What we're exposed to gets permeated right into our system. When we place our attention on something consistently, you are basically allowing this thing to have access to you and your mind. You're allowing it to take root in your subconscious, and you're allowing it to become a part of you. But more than that, we call it paying attention. Everything is an energy exchange in this universe. And this is what a lot of the elites know. You're feeding your life force into everything that you pay attention to. It's not going nowhere. Whatever you're focusing on, you are giving your conscious energy to this thing. And this applies to, not just social media and content, but this applies to relationships as well. If you're thinking about a person, even in a negative sense, you're sending them your energy. So we start with attention, because attention is how you leak your energy out of your system, how you end up energetically drained, how you end up forgetting your power, how you end up with no life force to create what you actually want to create. And it's also how things that you don't prefer gain access to you and your subconscious mind. So I have an analogy that makes this easier to understand. The majority of people in this matrix are using their attention horizontally, meaning they're either focusing on reaction or consumption. That is a horizontal use of your attention. You're directing your energy to react to something that's in front of you in your external reality, or to consume something that's in front of you in your external reality. Therefore, your energy is only staying on this plane, on this 3D lower dimensional plane. You're never actually growing upward. You're always remaining in the same level energetically. Somebody who's able to transcend this, they are directing their consciousness vertically. So what does this mean? Going inward, reflecting, thinking, responding, and creating. So when your focus is constantly being pulled outwards, you're looking at your notifications, you're worrying about people's opinions, you're looking for validation, you're scrolling. What the fuck? You're scrolling, you're on your newsfeed, you're looking at notifications, you're worrying about people's opinions. You're kept in a horizontal state of consciousness. So this is where you stay trapped in the same energetic frequency, because your awareness is just moving sideways. There's no depth to it. It feels like you're moving. It feels like there's a lot of movement, but it's very shallow. Whereas if you are putting your attention inwards and upwards, you're taking your attention off what already exists, what's external to you. So you stop this feedback loop of feeding into physical reality. You put it inside internally. And that is where growth happens in your state. Within this state, when you're sending your attention inwards, when you're directing your consciousness inwards, that's where you can start breaking your patterns. That's where you can start being self-led. That's where you can start questioning things. And that's where real growth can happen in your frequency, which is where growth will happen externally. So horizontal consciousness keeps you in the matrix. Vertical consciousness is how you exit it, i.e., you take your attention off all of these things that are draining you, all of these things external to you, and you put your attention within you. If you need a really practical tip on how to do this, because I'm big on being practical, and I know somebody in the comments is going to ask me, how do I do that? Sit down in silence and close your eyes and tune into your body and repeat in your head, I call all my energy and power back to me now. And notice how it feels to sit inside your body and put your attention on yourself and take your attention off everything else. That's how you start mastering this component of the frequency. That's how you start becoming a glitch in this matrix. I mean, this is really deep. I could go all day on this, but like what you put your attention on also grows. But if you're putting your attention on shallow, low dimensional things, there's nowhere for those things to grow, because they don't have the capacity for growth, because they're limited in nature. They're finite. But if you put your attention on you and your creative consciousness. You are an unlimited being at your essence. So when you put your attention on that, that can grow infinitely bigger. The second component to master of your frequency is your emotions. Now, the way that this is used to contain you within the matrix is you're programmed to be kept predominantly in fear, shame, and seeking validation. That is most people's overall state. So even if we look at the energy centers or the chakras, the consciousness of this reality that we're living in is trapped from the solar plexus down, okay? So it's trapped in the lower 3 energy centers, which the root center is associated with fear, the sacral center is associated with shame, and some other things as well, dissatisfaction, and the solar plexus is associated with the ego, needing to seek validation externally, performance, etc., etc. That's when these things are out of balance. And so the overall consciousness of this planet is trapped below those 3 centers. And that permeates every single system. It permeates news, it permeates TV, it permeates governments, it permeates everything. That's why we see so much scarcity and limitation and fear and danger and violence in everything in this reality, because it is this overall state of consciousness of the planet. If you want to be the glitch, you have to transcend that. So even if we break down, where fear comes from, it comes from scarcity conditioning. Even the economy is based off artificial scarcity, debt, inflation. All of these things were like man-made concepts that condition this lack and this fear of not having enough into us since we were old enough to even understand what it was. What this does is it keeps us in survival mode. So there's not enough. I need to hustle. I need to graft. I need to do more. You're running, trying to make ends meet. Why? Because you were conditioned with this program that that's how things are. And what this does is it stops you from having courage. As soon as you practice courage, you transcend the lower vibrational emotions of the ego, and you actually start becoming, you start stepping into creative consciousness. So for you to practice courage, you would be transcending a lot of the traps of the matrix. You would be breaking out of a lot of the systems that the matrix wants you to stay stuck in. And you would be realizing your power. You would be much less easy to control. If you had no fear, what would you do? If you feared nothing, what would you do? If there was no fear of lack, if there was no fear of money running out, if there was no fear of things falling apart, of limitation, what would you do? Shame. Where does shame come from? Schools, religion, now media, cancel culture. Again, all of these systems create this feeling of, I can't be my full true self. I can't speak my truth. I can't be loud. I can't dance on tables. This is something I see a lot in my coaching clients. Everybody has this ridiculous amount of shame about who they really are. And it's totally unnecessary. It's not valid at all. So I see a lot of people, especially people who have a very unique path or who have a really strong kind of calling and mission that's really exceptional and unique. Those people in particular, they have a lot to overcome in terms of shame about the self because they went to something like a traditional school and they were bullied a lot. They were told they were strange, and they spent their whole lives then repressing all these parts of them when those parts were exactly where their power is. Because overall as a society, we are programmed to censor a lot of the parts of ourselves. We don't step into our full potential because those are the very parts where our potential is. And then validation, once again, school, the corporate world, capitalism, advertising, marketing. We're told that we need to be this, this, and this, that we need to have this, this, and this, that we need to buy this thing, that we need to earn this thing, that we need to, win this, achieve this, to be good enough. So we're trained to source our value external to us. And that makes us very predictable. It makes us go and enter the rat race and chase all of these things that don't actually mean anything to us. So how can you overcome fear? You stop obeying it. Like the name of that book, you feel the fear and you do it anyway. And then you start to realize there was nothing to fear in the first place. That's the easiest way. Not the easiest way, but it's the most direct way to start overcoming fear. When you realize all your fears are unfounded and they're based on an illusion of a program that you inherited, you will stop obeying them. It'll be easier and easier. You'll realize fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. Shame. Don't repress. Okay, so the antidote to shame is when you're feeling shame, when you're feeling like censoring yourself, have a little bit of courage to just accept the thing that you are ashamed about. Realize there's some narrative that I'm running here that's making me ashamed of this thing, and it's probably not true. So how can I accept these parts of me that I want to repress? Because it is the repression of these parts of you that is creating the shame to begin with. And validation. When you feel the need to hustle or change yourself or go tap dancing just to get a little bit of validation, remind yourself, do not perform. This, I could do a whole video on this. When you're performing, you're not being who you truly are. So you're not going to be able to create what you came here to create, and you're not going to be able to live up to your full potential. So when you notice that you're about to perform, don't. Realize that being obedient, being ashamed, censoring yourself, looking for validation, performing for validation, all of that is keeping you in a slave state of consciousness. So overcome these emotions. Don't let them control you, and you will be able to transcend that state. Hi there. I have an appointment for 2:00 for nails. Yes, yeah. I just wanted to let you know. I'm so sorry. I'm running a little bit late. Is it okay if I come at around 1:15 or 20 past?
One moment, please, Kathy. Okay, no pasa nada.
Okay, thank you. See you soon. The third element of your frequency that you must control in order to become a glitch and watch miracles unfold in your life is your identity / your beliefs. We're going to put the two in one because your identity kind of dictates the beliefs that you have. You will never hold a belief that contradicts your identity. So if you think of this like a house, identity is actually at the top, and then your beliefs are like the foundations that support the overall structure of this house. How much of what you want is what you actually want? Do you just want what you've been told to want? Are you just being who you've been told to be? And I'm going to give you some questions to help you with this. But most of your identity you inherited for approval and to perform. I'm so sorry. We learn how to be in this world based on our environment, and we adopt certain identity traits that we think are going to keep us safe, going to keep us approved, going to keep us liked, etc., etc. And that's all well and good until that identity becomes a cage, keeping you trapped in a life that you don't prefer. So I'm going to give you a really basic example that I used to always give. I think my second YouTube video was about identity because it's such a big topic. But let's say, for example, you have this identity trait of being quiet, of being shy, of being an introvert. But your purpose in this life is to be a public speaker. Your identity is now standing in the way of what you are supposed to do, of where your most abundant, fulfilled, creative reality is. And so I want you to be radically honest about yourself. What identity traits are you still holding on to just for approval? Or just so that you can be seen to be performing well in something? Just so you can have validation external to you? Just so you can have a certain status that means nothing to you? And you want to start defining your identity on your truth, because you don't realize how small you're playing when you're standing in an identity that is actually not aligned with you. So you want to switch from thinking, who should I be in order to achieve X, Y, and Z, in order to impress this person, in order to whatever it is? The most magnetic, most successful people in this world are people who defined themselves, their identity on their own terms. Yes, you can take inspiration, you can have role models, but you have to define yourself off what truly resonates with you. And I'm going to give you a cheat code for this that I always give. But if you think about your dream life, the life that you would live if nobody was watching, if you could just design it the way that you wanted, if there were no rules, if there was no judgment, if there was nobody perceiving you, think about that dream life and then think about who you are in that reality. This is the avatar, the identity, the version of you that you should start defining yourself as. So you want to draw a stick figure on a piece of paper and say, me with X outcome, and define your characteristics, your habits, your standards, your emotions, just in general, how you would define yourself. And let that be your new narrative. You don't realize how small you've been playing by living in an identity that just chases approval and validation and acceptance and to conform and fit in. So shift how you define yourself from avoiding disapproval to pursuing authenticity. Because, I mean, if you want to get spiritual about it, you were made unique. You were made one of a kind. You are a fractal of God, source consciousness, but every human being on this planet is in their own lane energetically. Their soul, it has their own unique blueprint for what to do in this reality. And so your path, your soul's path to fulfillment is going to be different to everyone else's. And that is why authenticity is one of the highest forms of consciousness and one of the biggest hacks for exiting that matrix slave mentality. Yes, it takes courage. Yes, it takes overcoming your fears, but it is always, always worth it. How to enter a matrix glitch frequency. You have to take control of the very things that the matrix is controlling within you. And those things are the components of your energetic frequency, being your attention, what you're focusing on, your emotions, how you're feeling, your dominant emotional state, and your identity and beliefs about yourself and what you can and can't do. When you take the wheels on these components, your frequency shifts dramatically. And as soon as your internal world shifts, your external world will shift to reflect that. But until you take control of these things, nothing in your physical reality can change, because reality is just an illusion. It's an end result of creative consciousness, which is you. You have creative consciousness within you. And when you change the internal, the external has no choice but to follow. This is how you become the glitch. This is how you exit the consciousness of the masses and you start defining life on your terms. If you want step-by-step resources on how to do this, join my private community. I have guided meditations, exercises, all the tools you could ever need to shift your state and align with the life of your dreams. You can find the link below. I hope this video helped. Please remember, you are a powerful being. You have everything you need to create the life of your dreams. You just have to let go of all the noise and tune back into yourself.